Somebody can check it if it's working. You know?
Okay. It looks like it says we're live. So,
Yep, it's working.
okay. You want to go ahead and share your screen, Mr. Mbang? All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Académie Lafayette board meeting for January. Happy New Year. Hopefully, everybody got some time to relax over the holidays. So we all came back to definitely a crazy start to the new year. So we're glad everybody could join us tonight. If you want to go to the next slide. We did have one change on the agenda. Initially, Doug Thaman had planned to present to us. He had a last minute emergency come up, so we will not see Doug tonight. So with that revision, can I get a motion to approve the agenda for tonight?
Did we add the part about Brad Steele presenting?
Oh, is that on the
Or do we
agenda?
need to-
Yes,
Oh, did get added on?
the approval of the audit.
Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Perfect. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved, Mike.
Second,
Second, Kelly.
any discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. Do we have anybody for stakeholder comments tonight?
No, we do not.
Okay, wonderful. Then we can hand it over to Jackie and Brad for discussion of the audit.
Great, thank you. And Brad has got a couple of things he wanted to present. Want to thank him for all the work Westbrook did in getting us ready for the audit, and he can explain why we're just a tad late on getting everything done. I think it's kind of a across the board issue. But welcome, Brad, and I will turn off my video and let him present the 20 audit.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Like she said, we are a little late in presenting the audit this year. This is kind of a weird year for everybody, including the auditors. All this federal money come into all these schools and public, the district schools and also the charter schools, and some charter schools that never had a single audit before, which in your guys' case is the case, or you not typically have a single audit, had one this year. And then some of the schools that typically have single audits, instead of having to test 1 or 2 programs, they had to test 3 or 4 to get their coverage on the federal program. And so everything kind of got pushed back. But as long as this gets submitted, I think by the 12th, there's no repercussions from DESE at all. So we should be in good shape with that. I'm going to go over a couple things in the slides. I didn't have all 43 pages on here, but if you have any questions on any of the other pages, I'll be glad to answer them. First thing I want to look at is the audit, and then I've got some graphs at the end that'll kind of summarize where you're at from a financial standpoint. First thing I always want to point out is the independent auditor's report. They state here that in their opinion, the consolidated financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. Means you had a clean audit. And you're consolidated, it says consolidated financial statements here because you're consolidating with for the new market tax credit. So they had to consolidate that, and they have ever since the new market tax credit started, so that's not unusual. And the financial statements I decided to put in here tonight are the ones that, for lack of a better term, we call them DESE financials. You've got basically nonprofit financial statements that capitalize your capital expenditures and depreciate them over their useful life. And then you've got what we call DESE financials, which is, I put them in here because that's who's requiring you to have an audit, is DESE. So I put that in here. The biggest differences there are whenever you go out and buy a fixed asset, a building, it gets expensed when you purchase it, and there's no depreciation on it for DESE purposes. And the debt, if you go out and borrow money, it gets counted as other inflows when you receive the money, and then when you pay it, it gets coded to principal and interest expense. So that's the major difference here. But this is what DESI's looking at. They're looking at, in your case, you have a general fund, a special revenue fund, and a capital projects fund. Capital projects fund, that's where all your capital expenditures are. Then you have the special revenue fund. That's where all your certified staff gets paid. All the personnel costs for certified staff is in the special revenue fund, and the general fund is everything else. You can see here the special revenue fund, the capital projects fund here on the statement of assets and liabilities have zeros in them. That's not uncommon. You're allowed to transfer money over to the special revenue fund to cover all those costs, and the same with the capital projects fund. So it's not unusual for those to be zeroed out. The main thing here is you got about $5.7 million in assets. That's good. You guys are in good financial condition. This shows, of course, the general fund, special revenue fund, and capital projects fund, but it also shows the revenues and expenditures in each of those funds. If you look down here, there was $1 million transferred out of the general fund into the capital projects fund to cover the expenditures that were in that capital projects fund. The net change in fund balance in the general fund was $466,000, and then in the capital projects fund was a negative 63. So overall, about $400,000 to the good on your financial statements or on your ASBR for DESI purposes. So you had a good year financially. We talked about the auditor has to give an opinion on your financial statements. They also have to give an opinion on your compliance with laws and regulations, Missouri laws and regulations. And basically that is the attendance and transportation, whether you're collateralized at your banks, that type of thing. And you can see here, you complied with all that and you had a clean audit. There was one immaterial instance of non-compliance. And what that is they look at all your deposits sitting in the bank on June 30th, 2021. And you had about 2%, or about 1.7% of your cash balance was actually unsecured, which is a very small percentage. It was about 100,000 out of over 5 million. So it's not a major issue, and that's why they called it an immaterial instance. And it's really not anything you're going to lose. It just basically, if Country Club Bank, you got about 5 accounts there, and if you added all of those up, you were at about 340 some thousand. So you were over the 250,000. So they have to comment, but it's not a major issue, and you won't hear anything from DESI about it. You won't hear anything from anybody about it. So you're just fine. They also look at your internal controls. They have to give, they don't have to give an opinion on your internal controls, but they look at it as a way to plan for their audit. So when they look at your internal controls, if they see a material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that come to their attention, they will report that to you. But if you can see here in the last paragraph, they said, we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that we consider to be material weaknesses. So you're okay. You know, from them looking at your internal controls, they're happy with your internal controls. This is new this year on your federal audit, single audit. They had to do it's called a federal audit or a single audit on your federal programs because your federal expenditures were over 750,000, and you had a clean federal audit is what this is saying. In our opinion, the school complied in all material respects. So you had a clean audit on your compliance with the federal program expenditures. This is a summary of the auditor's results, and you can see there's a financial statement audit, and there's the audit of federal awards. And there was no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in either one. And you can see down there in number 4, that's the major federal programs that they tested. They tested the Coronavirus Relief Fund, the Education Stabilization Fund, and the Charter School Program Grant are the 3 programs that they tested. One thing I always want to point out here on number 6, it says the auditee qualified as a low-risk auditee. That is marked no, and that'll always be marked no. To get that to be marked yes, you have to have no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, which you did, but you also have to be GAAP basis. So the federal government says in order to be a low-risk auditee, you have to be GAAP basis, and 99% of the school districts in the state of Missouri are cash or modified cash. So almost all our schools in the state of Missouri will have that marked no because they're not GAAP basis. These are the graphs that we put together, and this is a trend over the last 10 years. And this first one's probably the most important one. it's your reserve ratio. And you can see there over the last 10 years, you went from about 11% reserves to 45% reserves. You guys are in very good financial condition right now. That's good. With everything that's going on with politics and the funding in the state, it's good to have some reserves built up, and you guys have, and that's very good. And your average daily attendance has increased over the last 10 years as well, which is no surprise, but that's the biggest revenue driver you guys have as charter schools is your kids in the seats. So both of those things, the reserve ratio and your average daily attendance, typically go hand in hand. So you guys are in good financial condition. This is a summary of your revenue or schedule of revenues collected by source. And you can see there over the last 3 years, you've increased over $1 million in revenue, but as a percentage, it stays pretty consistent where the money's coming from, whether it's federal, state, or local. And that's not uncommon for school districts. That's pretty common. The next graph is the expenditures paid by object. This is the same type of graph except for the expenditures. And you can see here, again, over the last 3 years, you had over $1 million more in expenditures, but it stayed pretty consistent on where it's coming from. And you're right around that 70% range for personnel costs on your operating budget. And that, again, that's pretty standard for school districts in the state of Missouri. We audit about 40 school districts, and I would say at least 30 or 33, 32 of them are in that 70 to 75% range. So you guys are right in that range for most of the other school districts in the state of Missouri. So overall, you had a clean audit. You went through a federal program audit and had a clean audit there as well. That's great. You're in good financial condition. Is there any questions on any of the audit? Okay. So Jackie, he was making those two little small changes, and then when he sends that back to me, I'll send that to you in the morning. You can send that. He'll send that to you in the morning. You can upload that, and we should be in good shape.
All right, very good. Hey, thank you.
No problem at all.
All right, and if there's questions, you can send an email if you really have time to process, and certainly not always available to answer questions.
You bet.
Thanks, Brad, for your time tonight. I can say I always appreciate just starting with, I'm amazed that we had such a strong financial year. And I think it's a credit to Jackie and sort of the team and your support that we had such a strong year. So that is great to hear, because I know not everybody was able to do the same. So thank you for your help.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
All right. Next on the agenda, I think we have PTO Alonda. Are you there? Oh, wait, we need a motion to approve the audit.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Forgot about that piece. Give me just a second, Alonda. Can I have a motion to approve the audit as presented?
So moved, Markham.
Second, Harriet.
Any discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Aye.
Okay, now I think we can move on to Alonda.
PTO doesn't have too much to report except to kind of the end, talk about a little bit how the school year ended with just getting everything together for the Christmas gifts and everything for the staff. Excuse me. We felt like that did pretty good, and everybody was very appreciative on getting that together and donating. We were contemplating a game night, trivia night, but due to how COVID is kind of going crazy, we're not going to do that. And the end of the month and or the beginning of February. We just don't feel like that's a good time to have something like that indoors, and it's too cold to have something like that outdoors. So, but the motion, excuse me, the idea of possibly having it virtual is still partway on the table. I have a couple people that are coordinating that, and I have a meeting with her later this week, another one. So I'll let you guys know about that. And then we're just looking forward to our, we're going to have a block party in the spring, and we're just kind of getting that going and getting ready for another board meeting. And then we are going to put some more things on the agenda for the end of the year and going into the fall months. So all we're doing right now is just kind of regrouping and getting things together. And so we will definitely be up and ready and going full speed with for next year. So that's what the PTO is doing right now at this moment. Does anybody have any questions?
Nope, sounds like no questions, but appreciate your continued work. Can definitely understand why there maybe is not an in-person event. I know it's hard to not be able to convene. It's tough to develop community when you can't see each other, but I get why we're definitely not there right now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially with this new variant kind of, taking out, people and just like not being able to, yeah. Yeah. So with that going on, we just don't completely feel comfortable with that. So
Yeah, I think that was a good call.
So yeah, but again, if there's something that we can do spur that we can pull off, which I have a pretty good team that can do that. So but we'll keep you posted.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I think you made the right call. I think it's impossible to come together right now. So yeah, it definitely continues to be crazy, but thank you for everything you do.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you guys.
All right, next on the agenda, hopefully everybody had a chance to review the December minutes that Carlos sent out. Can I get a motion to approve minutes?
So moved, Michelle. Oh, sorry.
Second is John.
Any discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. Jackie, back to you for finance.
Okay, hello, everybody. So December accounts payable, the finance committee reviewed. There were a few questions. There's CSP grant travel for IB. There was a little bit of travel. I'm not sure what's going to happen in the next couple of months for those that are scheduled. The NWA test charge all came in November. So sometimes that's spread out over the year, and that was about $15,000. And additional IT services to help get all the Chromebooks set up. And a lot of, well, there was a little bit over $8,000 for flexible educators. And that was with a few days off for Thanksgiving holiday. So those were the, and outreach ads. There were several ads on radio, and that was, I can't remember the name of the radio station right now. So those were the questions we got from Finance Committee. If anybody else has a question after they had a chance to look at them, please let me know. Okay.
Move to approve December's accounts payable. This is Harriet.
I'll second that. This is Mike.
Any discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries.
Okay, so it was great to have Brad present and talk about some of the positive things. And remember, though, that we had a good year, even with expenses in that year that we hadn't collected ESSER 2 for. So some of that rollover happens again in this year. Quite honestly, there's not a whole lot of change from last month's report. In fact, just a few $1,000s. There are a couple of changes. We updated our basic formula. What happened this month is if you see at the bottom here, we got a $216,000 correction from prior year. I am not completely clear on what all of that is, what all of that includes, and we have not submitted the audit, so we haven't gotten what we had estimated that we were going to get due to the increased ADA. Brad's graph, if you look, remember the ADA really went up. So last year we had a large jump, and I'm sure that there will still be questions looking at that. What happened was, if you remember, all of the students that came back in school, March, April, and May, got seated attendance just for those 60 some days. And everybody brought their kids, and there was great attendance. So it's a little blip in our screen. So when it looks like 97%, we've never been that high. And that was because all those students came in for that short period of time. So we're still waiting to get the clarification on, after our audit submitted, on any additional basic formula. But that is built into our model. So then we added the $216,000 that we received in November. This year we made some lower adjustments because of our decrease in enrollment and ADA. We're still looking at that ADA. It's still hovering around 93% this year. So we'll go, hopefully we'll get some of that corrected as we look at some of the attendance starting now and going back and really making sure quarantine were counted in some of the homebound classes. Okay, next slide. So overview of revenue, when I just was saying, if you just want to, here we are year to date, a little over $6 million, and we're forecasting to be a little over 16.5 million by the end of June. So we're about $455,000 over budget for revenue for several things. Federal revenue, what happened this year is that we didn't claim our Title I and our special ed last year, so it came in this year. So we're going to be over. So it's all of last year's revenue that we didn't claim, and assuming we'll get this year's revenue also. So that's where our biggest pickup is. I'm still not clear on transportation yet. Read the finance memo. We're still estimating that we'll continue to get what we budgeted. However, in November, we didn't get any transportation payment. So we'll see what happens there. So as you know, last year, we only had hybrid and transportation very few days out of the school year. So it changes the way that we get paid, number of riders, mileage, those kinds of things. So I'm not clear on what's going to happen with transportation. It's not a huge part of our budget, so not really worried yet. So let's go to expenses really quickly. Year to date, we're a little over almost 7 million. Our budget was, not quite done with that slide, but that's okay. A little bit over 16, and our budget was 15.5. So we're over expenses a little like 667,000. Not concerned yet. Part of it has to do with purchasing Chromebooks, furniture, some of the things that weren't budgeted, and mostly some of the capital things that we have to do. And one at some meeting we talked about it in our finance meeting, but how those capital needs come up and have to be addressed, but just come out of your operating is the way that we report it to DESI. So even if it's budgeted, it still shows up there. So a little bit over, I'm not worried. We're about $200,000 less than we thought we were going to be, revenues over expenses. And again, this is so early in the year, and we're still assessing attendance, ADA, and actual the per pupil amount. Okay, next slide. So over expenses, year to date, we are over in expenses. As I said, I'm not really concerned yet. We're watching the salaries and benefits line, which was way under budget. However, we created, on your detail that you get, we created a new line that says increased expenses for substitutes and contracted services. So we're contracting several of the positions, a teacher, the substitutes, and Moses, and some IT. So that's in contracted services. That's why we're so under in our salaries and benefits. So we're watching that because they're kind of merging. We're still about $200,000 year to date under there. We're over budget in expenses like technology and capital expenses that were paid from operating and were not budgeted. Many of those will be covered by ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. And at this early forecast, if I did nothing else, we would be over expenses by 667,000, which sounds like a lot, but about 200 of that is those capital needs, and we still have more to do. As you know, the oak concrete, oak tuck pointing we did earlier. We've got some electric work at Armor that came up, some new stage curtains at Cherry, and then we have some new pipe issues at Cherry that we're addressing right now, getting bids for. Food service is way over budget if you look at your detail, which also has corresponding increase in revenue because all the meals are free for all students. Our participation has increased greatly for both breakfast and lunch, and so our costs have increased, but also we've been capturing much more revenue in the food service line. Okay, next. This just summarizes the whole year. So I told you what our forecast was for revenue, which is over by almost $500,000, over for expenses by a little over 600,000. Then we have to take out our capital expenses and debt service. So at this point, I think last month I said we were over, we were under revenue by about 170,000. So we're still very close to the early projections. Our budget was just a barely break even at a little over 26,000. So I think we'll get there. We also have some expenses in this year that can be attributed to a new grant we have that we have not put into the budget, including the revenue. And that is the Department of Health and Senior Services for some COVID relief, which would help pay for some of the COVID tests that we were paying for prior to setting up those services. And there's quite a few $1,000s in there. The other thing is we estimated that we're going to continue to pay for some of those tests because the state is lacking in product. And so unfortunately, what we had considered a non-expense to be provided by the state, we are now going to have to increase our expenses for testing. Looking at the original projections, about $10,000 or $15,000 for the next few months. Next. So in summary, our per pupil payment has been stable in our DESI payments. So we're still using $8,500, which would include the MOU with the district. You saw the audit was completed and may result in our estimated ADA for prior year correction once that's submitted tomorrow. Really working closely with the staff to assess our ADA monthly and making changes to projections. We're also looking at all of our ESSER expenses. Last year's the federal audit covered everything except for the ESSER 2 expenses, so I will be addressing those this year. Looking at controlling some other expenses due to those unplanned capital projects. And, again, I'm still not worried because of our reserve. There are certain capital things that we just have to do. Hoping we're not going to have to get into that reserve, but if we do, we at least have the reserves to handle those capital projects. We started on the 22-23 budget. Carlos and Dana got finalized an RFP for bus service that was posted. That bus service is posted because Citywide is not going to provide services next year. The RFP went out asking for any and all current providers, and there's also one moving here from Atlanta. So Carlos is working on those. And the issue with that, once again, and we've discussed with Conseil d'École also, is that may not include door-to-door bus service. So, we just don't know. So those RFPs are out. The next thing is to do an RFP for food service, and that's just something that we have to do every 3 years with DESI. And so we're working with a DESI rep to get the exact RFP so that we can send that out. And just working on that budget, looking at salary scale analysis, and spent quite a bit of time at finance meeting looking at some options, and we'll be looking at those in more detail as we move forward. Anybody have any questions? Okay. And email me, certainly.
I have a comment. I think everybody should tip their hats to Jackie. I don't think everybody realizes all the work that went in to get that audit done and have no problems. And it's not like we have a big finance department. We have Jackie.
Marcia.
Marcia. So it really is great.
Thank you, Harriet.
And not just an immense amount of work, but during the 2 weeks that school was closed, when ideally you would have had some time to take off. I know I saw numerous emails from you about the audit. So continuing, yeah, right through the holidays seem to be required. So yes, it's very much appreciated.
Thank you.
All right, on to the development committee.
Hi, everyone. How are you? Not too much to share except from our last meeting. We do have the annual fund appeal did get launched the second week of December. To date, we're about 19.5 in gifts we've currently received, and pretty much daily we're getting quite a bit of more gifts coming in. So we're being hopeful. We also have on Friday's newsletter, we sent out upcoming events that we are being hopeful that they will be coming on, and so that we will have something at least, but we are being hopeful that they'll be already going to be in arm's length, and we don't have to worry about having to go online, but we do have an arm that will allow us to go online if for whatever reason we need to. We do, for those who don't know what Generations and Special Day is, it will be an opportunity for us to give parents and special people, you know, and our students a chance to honor them and everything that they've been given us. So this will be an outdoor event. We're still going with the details, but we're looking more of everything will be outside, and just going through pandemic protocols. Evening in Paris as well. It is going to be an indoor, outdoor, mostly outdoor, utilizing all of our pandemic protocols and very limited attendance. So as you get the information that's coming weekly, just make sure you look at all the details. We are also asking for volunteers. A lot of the volunteers are going to have to follow our protocols as well. Also at the event, it will be pandemic protocols as well. What we do for the school, we're also going to be acquiring it there as well. We are currently trying to reduce all the costs that will go into the evening in Paris. So a lot of it's going to be through sponsorships as well as gifts. We've already started the process. We've already pretty much acquired about maybe 10% right now of silent auction items. And we are going to release this week sponsorships. So if the board or anyone else that's on this phone call and Zoom meeting has any contacts, please reach out to me so that we can start the process of sponsorships and start alleviating some cost in there as well. As well as with silent auction items, we are giving a lot of the AL families who own businesses, if they want to participate here first, they'll be getting correspondence here in the next probably few days. And then we have Musketeer March, again, an outdoor event through the help of Boosterthon. They're going to be setting up everything for those of you who were participating, I guess, in the last year or 2 years, I think. This will be an outside event as well, another great fundraiser for our school. So if anybody wants to participate, we do need to fill out the parent volunteer forms along with getting approval from our nursing staff. And then last would be all of our partnerships and grants. Pretty hopeful that this first quarter we have some new corporate partners that are releasing some of their philanthropics as well as grants. So we should be receiving feedback and responses here for the funds and awareness, hopefully here by March. Does anybody have any questions?
And I think I heard you mention EIP will probably be smaller this year because of pandemic protocol.
Hopefully not. We're having everything set up so it is an indoor outdoor event. It is very limited availability. We are going to be following the protocols of having vaccination. So fully vaccinated is going to have to, show proof prior to the event, 48 hours. Also, they have to show a negative test. So they're going to have to either do a PCR or an antigen test prior to the event. Also, entering the event, everyone's going to have their temperature checked. So we are following every protocol available. I mean, so, you know, it's going to be a great event. However, we just have to be patient in hopes that this will be, you know, a little light.
So when you say limited, are you speaking of space?
I'm sorry?
When you're speaking of limited, it's going to be limited. Are you speaking of
It's going to be
space?
limited space. It's going to be up to
Okay.
150.
Okay.
So we downscaled it, but it is an outdoor. So a lot of it's going to be outdoor and indoor. Of course, where, you know, the food will be, everything is going to be individual. So you'll get the details here shortly. Should be releasing out the invitation here by Thursday. Friday, the rest of the details, so everyone can, you know, save the date, as well as if it happens that we do have to go online, it's already set up. So we will be doing the silent auction and promotion through a live stream.
And are you considering allowing sort of participation in like the auction virtually if attendance has to be smaller? Just
So if no matter what, the auction's going to be online. So even if you attend the event, the auction's online, and it's going to be during a certain time. So it's fair for everybody. So once we get it released, so if you, I believe it's from 6:30 to 9:30, you'll have that certain time that everyone, whether you're at home, you're in another state, or you're attending the event, it's going to start and end at the exact same time. So you'll know it, everything, it'll be live. It'll be live feed through the TVs at the event, as well as you'll see it on your monitors or your phone.
Well, I appreciate all of your work. I know it's no small task to try to figure this out and with all of the unknowns that we have. So appreciate all the work that you're doing.
Thanks. Any other questions? Okay, thanks guys. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too. All right, governance.
Hello. Next slide. So charter sponsor transition, we're looking at May 1st as of right now. And so more detail coming on that, but you know, we voted on SLU at the last meeting. So meetings have already started and there will be more to come on that. Anything to add on that, Beth? Or is that?
No, I mean, we're meeting with Gary on Friday to just start to talk through the specifics. Vicki will definitely, from UCM, will help to manage the transition. So I'm sure it will all go well, but we're starting to just talk through the logistics on Friday.
March board meeting change to accommodate spring break. We'll be meeting on March 7th. March 7th. March 7th. All right, got that on there. That way everybody's not working on preparing their stuff during spring break, right? Dana, I'm going to come right back to you for training. Board parent election, we've got the calendar on the next slide. And so this is, if somebody will flip to the next slide, it just outlines the timing in terms of the parent-elect position. So we've got one open position right now for parent-elect, and everything is really handled by the Consul de Cole and then voted on by parents. So you probably saw in your board report that you got yesterday what this timeline looks like. Does anybody have any questions on that? All right, before I get to Dana, the one thing we wanted to talk about was the fix the glitch. As of right now, they are supposed to be meeting on this in session tomorrow. And so we're wanting to contact legislators and ask them to vote yes for the funding. A link has been posted on both ALFAMS, and I've also posted it on Musketeer. If anybody does not have Facebook, anybody listening to this does not have Facebook and needs the link, it's a very easy form to fill out and notify legislators, your intent and your wish that they do vote yes on this. If anybody is not connected to Facebook, you can email me directly and right through the Académie Lafayette website, mmarkham@academylafayette.org, and I will get the link to you so that you can do that. And for those who may not be as familiar or need to be reminded about what this is, so charter schools receive, the number kind of changes, but 1,000, 1,100 less per student than traditional public schools. And the reason for this, it's not anything, nefarious that people are trying to take money from charter schools, but it's frozen and tied to the 2005 property tax levels, which causes most of this shortfall. It's about 13% of charter funding comes from property taxes that are not frozen and tied to those rates. And it's a very complex formula. But a good example of this is Jackson County, when they raise their property values, public charter school parents are being asked to pay more in property taxes, but their public charter school won't receive the full amount of those higher taxes. And so the whole drive for this is to fix that issue. So on the 25th of this month, and we did this, I think we did this, it was right before pre-pandemic was the last one, but we have an opportunity to attend in Jeff City, meet with some of the legislators and be heard. And so it's one of those things that, I don't think we all feel comfortable about getting on a bus right now in 2 weeks on the 25th of January and riding down together. I did reach out to the organizers at the Charter Association, and they are looking into a virtual option. But for anyone who does want to attend, drive yourself, attend, there are going to be safety protocols in place, COVID protocols, then we have an opportunity. When we look at all of this funding and, the money we're trying to raise through development and through grants and all of these other things, this would solve a whole lot of it. And be really helpful. And, one of the things I'm assuming we're going to talk about here in a little bit is the strain that the school has right now with, teachers and COVID and everything that's going on. So this funding is really important. So again, same thing, reach out to me. I would love to organize and get people to attend virtually or in person in a safe way. So we just want to do what we do. Académie Lafayette really showed up big last time. And so anything that we can do to show up big as well this time, it really does make a difference. I mean, we were heard, and we were heard loud along with a lot of the other charter schools, but we've been really good at pushing for this and supporting this cause.
Thank you for that overview. And as you all know, Doug Thaman had hoped to be here to give a more in-depth overview of where we are. He had a last minute emergency. He will come to a future board meeting, but just wanted to make sure you all were at least somewhat aware of the issues going into sort of the session tomorrow. So.
Does anyone have any questions on that before I turn it over to Dana, who is going to provide us about 15 minutes of training? All right, Dana, it's all yours.
All right, good evening and happy new year, everyone.
Anything, Dana?
Huh?
You need to present or not? No.
I do. I need to, I was gonna ask you if I could share the screen.
Okay, I'll do it.
All right, this is gonna be brief and there's a theme. There's no test afterwards, so just pay attention. I was asked to present on what we should do, or what should the board do when you all are contacted on by parents or others with complaints. And this is keeping the peace and protecting the school is our theme. So you can be contacted in a variety of ways. It could be email, it could be in person, it could be by phone, social media, or text. And I'm going to discuss each one in turn. First is email. So if there is an email sent to you and it's only to you, it doesn't appear to be a chain of people on it, then you need to send it to the chair of the board and send an acknowledgement saying, I have received your email and I am forwarding it to the chair for her response, or when our chair changes, whoever. but they will be the one responding in terms of detail. If there is a group email and it looks like it may be several board members, or you are one of 2 board members on the email plus a bunch of other folks, check to see if your chair was included on that email. See if the head of school was included on the email. If the chair was included on the email, you don't have to do anything. Just she will handle it. If the chair was not included, forward the email to your chair and let her know whether or not the head of school had been included on it. You may acknowledge that email. And again, what you want to do is say, hey, I got it. I forward it to the person who can respond to your concerns. In-person contact. Of course, this could happen anywhere. You could be in the grocery store. You could be at the mail, at the US Post Office, at the nail salon, or my favorite, having a wonderful dinner with a family member or your spouse, and a parent comes over and says, aren't you on the board? Hey, let me tell you about, that's a top 10 favorite for everybody. So be nice and courteous. I don't think I have to tell you that. Listen, but feel free to stop the person if they are giving you the 5,000 word explanation, like, okay, because it's your time too. But give the person a couple of minutes, and then if you get an idea of like, okay, this is not going to end soon or well, feel free to say, let me make sure I understand what it is, and then thank them for sharing and advise that you will pass it on to the chair for a response. You are not obligated, and I would say to you, please don't give a resolution or, well, we're going to do this with that, or I can assure you that'll be taken care of. Because the minute it doesn't go the way you said, or it isn't taken care of right away, or it's not taken care of in the way that you said it would be, it's a problem. So spare yourself, spare your board, spare your chair and your head of school additional headache by just saying, thank you, I've heard you, and I will take it to the right person and let them respond. If they press you like, well, when am I going to hear something? Say, I don't know, but I assure you this will be done, and keep it moving. And just to further, do not promise to resolve it or a possible resolution. You get a phone call and you're excited about the phone call as demonstrated by the figure in the slide. Again, be nice, be courteous, listen, thank them for sharing, advise that you will pass the issue on to the chair for response. Do not promise to resolve it or a possible resolution. Social media posts. Now this is a little different because a lot of times when we've had that type of contact, it is, some of it has been on the school's website. So you just happen to see something interesting or alarming. I would suggest that you contact your chair, but if it's something posted that may be of real concern or real alarming, here's the situation where you contact the chair and you contact Mr. Mbang or his lieutenant, because it may need to come down immediately or be handled immediately by the school. Do not respond to a post. Don't put your info. Don't, somebody post something on the Facebook page. You don't need to respond and say, well, the board doesn't think this is the way this should be. La, la, la. Don't do it. Just note it. Get to your head of school or his designee and to your chair and let them know what's going on so that they can respond. If you receive a tweet, Instagram, DM, something on Instagram, the best thing to do is to capture it so that you can share it with your chair and with Mr. Mbang if need be, but don't respond to it, no matter how awful it is or how insulting it is or inappropriate that it may be. It may be totally against how you believe or what you think or where you're politically situated, but the only thing that you would do is add fire to a firestorm. So just stand down. Text. This is very similar to your email. If it was just to you and it doesn't appear to be a group text, forward it to the chair, acknowledge receipt, let them know your chair will respond. If it's a group text, you want to see if your chair was included, if the head of school was included. If your chair was included, you don't have to do anything. If your chair was not included, forward it to her and let her know whether or not you could see if Mr. Mbang was on it, and then acknowledge receipt of the text, indicating again, the chair will respond. Depending on the issue, you might want to send it to your email or take a Snapchat of it so it's not lost, depending on what the content is or the issue. So the big picture is you aren't working in a vacuum, you aren't working by yourself, you're working as a board. So it's very important that you aren't making promises and decisions outside of that context, outside of the group. And whatever it is, it needs to come through your chair. Whatever the board's response should not be from individual board members, but from the board as a whole, as represented by your chair. And that's it. Okay, so the theme was goes through your chair. Do not respond, do not resolve it, let her handle it. That's why she gets the big piece of chicken at the benefits, because she's taking all the foolishness on. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm out of your way.
I want to know where my big piece of chicken is.
Well, that's between you and Mr. Mbang. He's dropped the ball if you're not getting your big piece of chicken.
John.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. All right, that's it from governance.
All right, any questions for Dana? Okay. We can move on to head of school. Sorry, diversity.
Aha, okay. Good evening, everyone. Just a few updates in regards to the diversity committee. The committee was informed about AL outreach efforts for with low-income preschools through the preschool cooperative. The committee discussed the 5th grade teachers meeting and with parents and the need for clear guidance regarding the communication with parents and how to use controversial language. So that was a big one that we discussed. I think Beth might have been the one that, I think you attended that meeting, didn't you? So yeah, so I think that a lot of good came out of that. The HOS invited the committee to help with a plan to reinforce a sense of belongingness and to engage all parents. So hopefully with our parent series and other things, we'll be able to come up with a plan to kind of help engage. The committee reviewed the racial demographics of the school and enrollment goals of reflecting the demographics and KCPS boundaries. So I believe that was a question that was asked through our parent series. And so we did review that information during our committee meeting. So, you know, more to come with the diversity committee. There's a lot that we're kind of working on and helping support Mr. Obang with some efforts. So more to come with this committee. Do you have anything, Beth or Mr. Obang?
No, I think you covered it. Thank you. I think we continue to move that work along, and I think we all recognize it as a really pivotal piece of the work that we're focused on.
One thing we have been doing, we start doing it on Monday, the 3rd, January 3rd. We started the audit or review of our literary resources, what books we're using by grade level, and where it came from, who is the author, who is the main character, and what is the theme, and so on. So the work is being done coordinated by Heather Royce, who is the Cherry principal, and Mulai Saidi, the vice principal, and the participants are all the librarian and the English teachers. So they met and discussed it. They have a document that we plan to finalize everything by the end of the school year. And once we're done, probably we'll move to the library for audit. But we want to make sure that our literary resources are reflect our student population, making sure that we are exposing our kids to the diversity of our community. So
Well, that's good news to hear. So thanks for that. Yeah, that's good to hear that that's gotten started.
Yeah, I want to thank Heather and Mulai for coordinating that efforts.
Absolutely. So if that's all, that's the report for the diversity committee.
Head of school. Again, thank you for your card and your gift for the end of the year. Thank also Jackie for a great audit, and Marsha. They worked really, really hard. It was, I thought Jackie would just walk out of the building and said, I'm done, that's it. So, but she's still here, thank you. I would like to announce Christy White, who is here with us, is the new Director of Admissions and Outreach, replacing Robin. Christy is a Kansas City native, comes to us with 8 years of experience in higher education, with emphasis in recruitment and student advisement. She was most recently with Webster University as Kansas City Recruitment Coordinator. She has a Bachelor of Art in Communication and a Master in Education from Phoenix. Is Christy there? Can you say a few words if you're there? I did not tell you, but.
Hi, everyone. I'm super excited to be a part of the AL family and really just looking forward to getting to work. I do have some upcoming events already. On January 29th, there will actually be a citywide open house. That'll be in person at the Oak campus on Saturday the 29th from 10 a.m. until noon. February 16th, I'll be, there's another event preparing for high school and beyond. And then February 23rd, the Show Me KC Schools pilot, the pre-K fair. So I'm keeping pretty busy and looking forward to meeting everyone.
So Christy, I've been working very well with Robin, because Robin is still working with helping us to succeed to do the transition all the way to the lottery in March. So they had a lot of meetings to see. I mean, of course, she has a lot of things to learn from Robin. So I'm glad that Robin will be able to work with her to train her, onboard her, so that she can be successful.
Awesome. Welcome to the team, Christy. We're excited to have you.
So this is what we have for the total application, and you can see it's a comparison between the years. First year we started the Common App, and the last year, the yellow one is the current one for next school year. It's the number of applications we have in November and December. And this is the breakdown of the application. The first column is the siblings and employee. Those who are already here have siblings, and the percentage of minority and non-minority, 61-36. We have 67 employees and siblings at this point. And new up, we have 55-43, 146. Kindergarten only, we have 65-33, 163. And all application, we have 57 non-minority and 41 minority. Our goal at the end is to get to 55% application from minority application. If you know that generally minorities tend to apply maybe in January, February in general. That's what we have seen. And it's normal that at the beginning, because we have our parents here and siblings, they already know what to do and it's being done. So that's where we are. COVID situation, as you see, it has been a very crazy short weeks. We resume schools on January the 4th, Tuesday, January the 4th, and then testing kids. As you can see, we have 47, but in fact, by the end of the week, the weekend, I want to stop here and say thank you to our nurses. They work over the weekend, tracing, contact tracing. It is an amazing job they've been doing, and it's hard. We had a good discussion a few times and see how we handle contact tracing. It's almost not manageable. We are at 63, in fact, 63 cases for this first week. And they have to contact trace, talk to people over the phone. They work all the weekend. That's a lot. Again, thank you to all the nurses, Alexis, Kristen, and Megan. Thank you very much. I had a meeting. So this one, the below one is the number of quarantine kids. At this point, 90% of our staff, 90% who have indicated that they're fully vaccinated. We have 41% boosted at this point. The situation, as I said, is kind of challenging. Today we had a couple of meetings with the nurses, and the decision was made to have one class go online except for those who are vaccinated, because we have more than 50% at least of the class absent and tested. And unfortunately that's an issue, and there's a low and those positivity rate were mainly indicated by parents themselves. So we discuss with the principals how to clarify criteria of closing a class, closing a building, closing a grade level, or closing a school. We're not thinking about closing the whole system, but based on certain things, because the main challenge we have is high number of cases and high number of teachers absence. At Oak and Cherry, we are at 9 teachers absent. And Arma is less affected by the number of teachers absent. At this point, we only have 2. But we're trying to use parents as substitute. And the problem is our teachers have been losing planning time, and it may not be sustainable to have teacher work 8 hours without planning time. So our resolution is, no matter what, each teacher will be given one planning time, at least 50 minutes. And how to get there is we have been using specialist teachers, English teachers, and asking parents to if they can get their sub-certificate. But now what we are trying to do also is using any admin staff, except for the nurse and the receptionist, at least to relieve teachers for 50 minutes or 1 hour. And also inviting parents. We're thinking about looking to see if we can have parents who are available 1 hour during the day at some point, or 2 hours, and who would be willing to, of course, come and supervise recess or lunches or something that would relieve teachers for their break. It will, of course, require some background check for anybody in contact with parents, with students. So we will plan to discuss at our next meeting next Monday about criteria, what would happen. Should we open a class when you get to 50% or 25% of positivity rate? And if you have to use all your specialist teachers at one point, how would we at least close class or grade level or building based on the challenging situation of staffing? So we'll have to discuss it. Hopefully, we will not have to close anything by the end of this week, but unfortunately, the cases of absence for teachers is mounting. As I said, we are 9 at Oak and 9 at Cherry, with 1 substitute. Yeah. Any question about the COVID?
No questions, but I would reiterate just a huge thank you to our nurses. It does seem like they are just working around the clock trying to keep our kids safe. So, I mean, I know I've seen emails from them at 9 o'clock on a Friday night so they They are just doing an amazing job keeping the kids safe. But I really worry about how our teachers are doing. There's the issue of the absences, and then those who are in the building having to cover for those who are absent. It just, so I appreciate all the conversations they are having to figure out how do we do this and keep it manageable.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And I do have a couple of questions. Is there a point where that you've identified that enough staff or enough students aren't there that it does make more sense to just go online for a couple of weeks and let this run its course?
We have started the conversation today with the principal and the nurses. And since we're going to have a COVID committee meeting on Monday, and those kind of things are probably recommendation coming from the committee. So we will do the groundwork and then submit it and have a discussion on Monday to see what is doable and not doable. As you can see in the news, more and more, the schools are being affected to the point of closing for a few days. So we do not want to have to be at the situation. We have seen how negatively impacted some kids were especially minorities and some kids, especially low income, affected by the online learning. So we're trying to catch up with that and stay open as long as possible. But at some point, if we can't sustain it, we'll have to clarify the criteria to closing.
Yeah, it's identifying that criteria that says this has to happen. And in terms of getting some people in for relief, there are quite a few of us who have already, board members, different committee members, sub teachers, parents, that have passed background checks. Could we start helping to fill that in is one question. And then a second question is, can we help the nurses? Are we violating anything if we ask parent volunteers to help with some of the calls, some of the notifications, anything to help relieve them a little bit?
We can't, medical would be a FERPA and HIPAA issue potentially.
Even just notifying like there's been an exposure in your class or anything? Okay.
I had a discussion with the nurses to see how do we train a few of our staff members for contact tracing. So we have been brainstorming to see what kind of solution we can adopt to alleviate this burden of contact tracing. Either we just abandon it like some of the district did it, or change it to emails, or have more people among our staff to do the contact tracing. So those are things that we have been discussing and see. Hopefully, by the end of this week or by the end of next week, things would come down a little bit. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, and then if there's anything that we as parents can do, or we as board members can do to fill in, if some of those staff members are helping nurses where we can fill in, even if it's front desk stuff, I know it's not as easy as just, sliding into a chair and doing it, but I think that, we've got a really strong community that would like to help.
Yes, we know we have some parents who want to be substitute nurses that we have been using, and some as substitute teachers who got their substitute teaching certificate. Yeah. Now for the 1 hour 1 hour volunteering, we're just starting talking about it, and hopefully in the next 2 days we will put some details, what is expected, and so the parents know exactly if they're here, what is expected, how they can handle the situation, and and all those kind of details that will simplify the expectation to the parents. And board members call you more than welcome. Of course, it's going to be easier because you already have your background check.
Right.
And it's always good for teachers to see you helping. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I think would be good for us.
Okay. That's what
I'll just say I really appreciate our focus on what do we need to do to keep kids in school, because we know that's what's good for kids. And yes, cases are rising in worrisome ways, but as long as it's not spread at the school that's happening, kids are oftentimes safest at school, right? We have the strictest protocols to keep kids safe. That is not what exists in our community. So I really appreciate us figuring out what do we need to do to keep our teachers sane and supported and feeling good about their work and kids safe at school.
So yeah, it's one more thing I did after we shared the MAP test, just to say the impact on online learning on mainly minority students. When I look at the test results of the MAP test in the spring of 2021, and then look at the percentage of students online, the breakdown of students online last year who chose to be online, and you see that there is the majority of minority students who stayed online. It was also showed by DESI for our own student. The chart showed by DESI also. That's why we think that trying to avoid online would be a good thing because it may impact more negatively minority students. So we'll see. Staffing issue, I just talked about it. What we have now about the 50 minutes planning time, at least making sure they have it. And we've seen also more and more parents requesting to move online, and we don't want to do that because it's not part of our part of the plan we want. We don't want parents saying, "Oh, there's the kids are increasing, then I'm going to move online." We want kids to be in person in the building, and we still have very few now, fewer than the first semester students staying online for different reasons. But we have seen an uptick of requests, especially in middle school and a couple of another building, parents wanting to move to online. We have been discussing the approach to this request. Probably we would discourage any parent trying to move online, but it's hard to say no. So one more brief information: the Consul General, the new Consul General of France, visited in Chicago, visited AL just before the holiday break. He visited the armor buildings only. So with the Consul General Honoraire, they were here, so they were extremely supportive of what we're doing, and then see how we can work closely with the French authorities. There will be, in general, every year, the French embassy coordinate or help organize a training of dual language program in Utah, and we will be sending at least two, a teacher and a principal or vice principal to attend the training. Staffing. At this point, we have finished assessing our needs for next year. When I say needs, based on the growth in the high school and the middle school. And then we have three of our instructional leaders, Heather, Jean-Claude, and Marissa, attending the EdFool conferences or meetings. EdFool is an organization paid by School Smart to help train and reorganize HR departments to make sure that we are more attractive to candidates. So, and as a result, we have kind of redone our career page to become more informative, more attractive to new applicants. And one other thing we have done now, we are using Bamboo HR, thanks to Marsha, who worked really hard and is now working with teachers, everybody getting an account. And we're using Bamboo HR for management of applications, and also for every teacher's file is there. So if they want to apply for a request, time off and so on. So it's much better now. So recruitment, we're going to move forward, and Madam Carlos has been working with our lawyers for H-1B visas and green cards, and also with our sponsors, because we have two sponsors for J1 visa. One is College Health Foundation, who sponsors some of our teachers for J1, and also Amity for J1. J1 is an exchange visitors visa that lasts 5 years now. It's possible to extend it to 7 years. So the other lawyer deals with H-1B visas and also green cards. Because, our practice has been so far, once a teacher is here and finishes their 3 years of H-1B visa, we start filing for green card as we file the renewal of an H-1B, because H-1B is a 6-year employment visa. Any questions? I just say to talk about it also, the career page being done, and we're working with Lisa Keys is our HR consultant, and then Alex Laskara is in charge of helping monitor our page and updating it so that we can easily direct applicants to that page and streamline it and screen the applications. Okay, this one, we talked about it in December with Liz Seeley, our counselor, high school counselor, came and did the presentation. She visited Manual Career Technical Center. I went there also, did a tour, because we thought that a couple of our students, high school students or 3, might be interested in taking classes in any of these domains or areas. So I sent you the memorandum for understanding, and since we introduced it in December, the goal is to vote on it in January, to give time for the board to think about it before we start working. We have to make a decision to start the process right now. Any question about this program, the memorandum, or anything?
We're looking at, you need our approval,
Yes.
and basically we're looking at anywhere between 24,000 to 30,000 for the year.
No.
Okay.
Because the cost per student is 3,500.
Per student.
Per student. If you have 3 students, it's less than that, around.
But if I have 7?
Well, I don't anticipate having 7 at this point for the first year.
Okay. And then we still have to work how they go and come.
Pardon?
How they're going to go and come. They go there in the morning.
We need to provide transportation.
Right. Okay.
And the finance committee looked at the cost of the transportation. I know that oftentimes can be incredibly pricey when we're looking at daily transportation.
Finance committee has not looked at this, but I think we have to approve. I mean, it's not that big of cost.
Right.
And I think we need to offer some of our high school kids different opportunities. So, I mean, that's just my thought.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a great way to expand what our students have the opportunity to participate in. As a small school, we are limited in what we can offer. So taking advantage of those things, I think it's great. Can we get a motion to approve the MOU with Manual Career Tech?
Is Mike so moved?
This is Gwen, I second.
Any discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you. Okay.
I mean, just a couple final things. One, I think everybody knows that we continue to try to think about where to identify new possible community board members We currently have 9 members. We'll add an additional parent this spring. So we'll have 3 open spots. We have struggled to sort of identify community members that fill sort of the requirements, the knowledge that we need in our board members. And so I spoke with Dr. Kokithia Hill a couple weeks ago. They have a coordinated effort through her organization, Black KC, that's going to help to identify potential new board members. So you all will see information about that in about the next month. They should have finalized dates and processes, but she did ask if Lafayette is interested in being an official partner to them. And I said we would be thrilled to engage and have the opportunity to interview some of the candidates that they identify. So you'll see information on that in the near future. Right before break, we talked about at the end of January, we wanted to have sort of a social gathering, but that is not going to happen at the moment. So as much as we would love to get together, I don't think anybody wants to see each other right now with all of the craziness. So we'll continue to keep an eye on sort of where we are with COVID and when the timing is right, that people might be more comfortable getting together in person. So we will hope that that happens sooner rather than later. And then there is one other thing that I forgot to add in the bullets. We did talk about, I'm going to send out an email with potential dates for our summer retreat. Oftentimes we wait till sort of the last minute to finalize the date of that. So I'd like to get that finalized sooner rather than later. I think we would be looking at a Saturday in June. We think we'll be in person, so we're going to plan for a 4-hour retreat. And then if that is not the case, we will readjust. But you'll see an email with possible dates. In the leadership committee, we talked about, every retreat, we typically revisit our strategic plan. I think we do need to have a focused conversation about the strategic plan. This is our 4th of 5 years, but we had clear goals that we wanted to accomplish in the strategic plan. And 3 of those 5 years are now heavily impacted by COVID. So I think the conversation that we would look at having this summer is evaluating the impacts that COVID has had. And based on that, how do we need to revise that strategic plan and likely extend it? Because we had no idea what we were getting into in this 5-year period. So we think it's a good time to revisit and revise as needed based on that discussion. So you will see an email with possible dates about that. Any questions or thoughts on those things? Okay, do we have closed session today?
I don't have anything, Madam Chair.
No, we don't.
Okay, wonderful. I was like, wait, I didn't think we had closed session. Okay, that
Yes, I
is
did that all the time. Yes.
That's right. Okay. If there's no final thoughts, I think we will look to adjourn the meeting. Appreciate everybody's time and stay healthy.
Thank you.
All right, everyone have a good night.
Thanks.